Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here. I'm Irene Nandutu. I'm a PhD student at Rhodes University, and I'm from the Department of Maths. So I want to share with you the review work that we conducted on integrating AI ethics in wildlife conservation AI systems. Our major focus has been on South Africa. I'll be able to share with you some of the challenges that are being experienced in AI wildlife conservation system. So the outline of the work, so I'll be able to share with you our motivation of the work, the current state of AI ethics and ethics in wildlife conservation systems, some of the challenges that we have called the AI ethical concerns in wildlife. Something pops up. Okay. Sorry about that. And then I'll share with you some of the contribution that we've been able to make. And also we'll share with you some of the on-demand applications that we felt they'll help to solve some of the challenges.
Irene, sorry, I think you've put your video on, but it's not working properly.
Something popped up and I said, okay.
Yeah, I think it's got to do with your video, but it looks very blurry to us, just so that you know.
Oh. Is there anything I can do? I'm thinking.
Actually, now you're fine. Now it's gone back to just having your name. So I think the video's off now.
So is everything okay now? Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So I'll also share with you some of the on-demand applications that we feel people can work on to help solve some of the challenges that we found in wildlife conservation. And we shall also share with you some of the future work. So the big problem that we saw is currently there is some AI ethics that is within wildlife conservation that is being highlighted, and also there is some kind of ethics or standards that are guiding them to be able to monitor some of these tools within wildlife conservation. But then we also did not see some, there's a gap in integrating the AI ethics in AI systems, what we'd call the wildlife monitoring tools. Now, it's worth it to note that some of these tools are embedded with machine learning algorithms, but some of them are not, but a good number of them are using AI to either make predictions or to capture some of the visualization that they want to get out of it. Now, this motivation also, some of the AI tools that a robot that I like watching is Sophia. And in one of her interviews, she highlighted and said, I want to destroy humans. So we like her about having a platform where software developers or AI engineers are guided in a manner that the tools do not end up hurting these animals or rangers or other stakeholders within the wildlife conservation. So current ethics and AI ethics that we saw that is happening, one of the ways it's majorly highlighted in the data sets that they have and also the machine learning models. And one of them is minimizing bias within the data. And this has been attained through copywriting of data sets. This is by the Global Biodiversity Information Activity, an organization that tries to observe this standard. And Jacqueline also highlighted that one of the ways is to have improved spatial resolution. We shall all agree that the number of pixels that we give our models also contribute to the accuracy of the model. The more the pixels, the more the model may predict higher accuracy, but also it may take higher computing resources. But that is some of the things that someone may have to look at. Respect embargoes and sensitivities in the data set. It's highly observed by the Endangered Wildlife Trust, an organization in Joburg that one of its core goals is to monitor animal vehicle collisions and ensure minimizing them, but also among other goals that it does. Agreeing to the terms of use of data before provision, the Department of Environmental Affairs in South Africa does observe this standard before they give you any data that you might require from them. Data providers, which I would call the wildlife conservation agencies, tend to document guidelines that give on the ethical use of data sets. That is one of the things that they observe, but also further see that emphasis has been on different implementers of these tools to show how large their data sets are or how they are being processed and how these models are trying to process the data. So justifications of intentional, justifications of your intentions, like you want to access the data, what are your intentions? So with, I had an encounter with Endangered Wildlife Trust. So what they do, they give you a form, you fill in your details and tell them, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a student, maybe, and I want this data for A, B, C, and D. So they will have to evaluate that and see if they have to give you the data or not. So they have that in place. Documentation of biases and release notes. Explanation of machine learning models that has also been highlighted, enforcing transparency on data sets. I also want to highlight that Microsoft for Earth also emphasizes on this a lot, and this helps to increase on the trust in AI. So some of the ethical concerns that we highlighted in some of the work that has been published, like Locale, in 2014, they tried to develop a model that captures images and geometric information on the set of physical curves. So what happens is whenever tigers move into a place, they go on ahead and take pictures of those footprints, and later on experts segment that data and segment it as toes, footprints, and pads. But then we saw that there was a very high error. And when we observed their data sets, there was unfair distribution of their data when it comes to toes footprints. So we saw some data bias within data, which also affected the outcome of their algorithms. Legal barriers, when it comes to drones, we see that they have highly been used in the conservation area. But to highlight on South Africa, there is a ban on using drones in wildlife if you're not licensed and authorized. I would say by the government. I think I need to find out the body that does that. But usually those drones are given number plates, and the operator should have gone at a certain kind of training to be able to attain that. And to be able to fly your drone within a certain national park, you have to get clearance from the national park. And also there is a body that gives them clearance to fly over a certain space. And also they have limitations of how far you can fly the drone. So there is also a tool that is being used, Protection Assistant for Wildlife Security. Basically, it tries to predict where poachers will likely strike next by understanding where and when poacher attacks have occurred before. So how are they able to do this? They collect data using rangers. Each time they find signs of poachers in a certain location, they give those GPA coordinates back. But there's been a highlight on the lack of those resources, law enforcement resources, which are gadgets that help in collecting crime data. And this, because of this, the algorithms fail to forecast or predict some of these hotspots, which makes the lives of conservation rangers vulnerable to poachers and predators. Some of the AI ethical concerns that have been highlighted, we saw Gutema also highlights about collar tag effects. So there are two modes that says, one of the violation of animal rights is they highlighted that these collar tag effects deny animals to be part of the population that is not collar tags, which they highlight that it's not ethical. Ethical is a violation of their rights, but also some of these collar tags are heavy for some of these animals. So they keep on carrying these tags on them, but when they are very heavy for them, some of them. And we are relating this to the South African Meat and Safety Act. I think it's one of those legislations that we felt was unfair. So basically the legislation allows animals, large animals from wild reserves to be slaughtered as long as they're slaughtered from abattoirs. So as animals are running away from poachers, actually they're also running away from the government, which is allowing people to actually slaughter them, which is something that is kind of violating their rights. There's also a certain high hyper poaching in the wildlife conservation, which is a big concern. So these ones are able to steal GPS tags, the geospatial data that is being collected. They steal it and track or where they could be able to find such animals and kill them. So we also saw that camera traps have been used in KwaZulu-Natal to estimate the abundance of leopards, but and the reason they did that is for decision-making purposes, and we saw that there was no transparency on how these kind of images are being processed when it comes to camera traps, where they are stored, who accesses them. It's not very transparent when it comes to most of their work. So this has been our contribution. So our contribution is we are looking at the challenges that are being faced and the AI. Couldn't we have some kind of platform that could guide maybe AI developers, or an umbrella that could bring all stakeholders together and be able to see how to mitigate this by integrating not only these within the system, but ensuring that all these standards are clear within an organization. So for the case of us framework, this is what our aim has been, is the framework aims at improving the development and deployment of machine learning models in reducing bias, promote fairness and ethical use of algorithms, data and system by integrating some of these guidelines to ensure that they are clear, explaining any decision-making process with due clarity. We expect that when people are using this framework, they'll be able to explain all this, implementing safeguards to protect all stakeholders. So if we are saying that the framework is available to guide these stakeholders safe to use such a framework. The primary goals of our framework. So I want to highlight that our framework is Agile, is using Agile methodology, and Agile methodology uses Scrum or Kanban, and this is a methodology that has been widely used in the software development industry, but also is highly adopted in the AI industry, especially to people who are developing machine learning pipelines. So we considered 4 primary goals when we're doing this, this framework. Is we want to contribute to creating awareness of the guidelines of AI ethics in wildlife conservation. We want to make the framework suitable for agile development, to make the proposed solution practical by having software quality assurance and response plans. And these are available and have been tested, and they're being used by organizations already. And these help to observe data protection and security in case of failure. Like, we can't avoid failure of systems in organizations. There should be a plan on how to handle it, to consider tools, methods, and techniques in the development process. So we also highlight that whenever if this framework is used, someone could consider to ensure that implements the framework and guidelines in harmony of the existing national laws, policies, and guidelines, because these will always either change or be modified, and different organizations like the African Wildlife Authority and other authorities may have different guidelines that we might have to follow when we're implementing some of these within organizations. Also through collaborations, like, and this has been witnessed by the government of Rwanda. It embraces a lot African Wildlife Foundation when they're building most of their laws when it comes to conservation. They engage them so that they may guide them. Like, legislators may not be technical people in the area, so it would be good when they have some mode of collaborations when they're passing some of these laws or policies within the country that may affect the different sections of the wildlife organizations. So the target should always be to minimize it should be related to minimize biases related to unfair representation of some species. Also minimizing these biases is something that we find very important, but because it's a form of compliance with ethics and AI ethics in wildlife conservation. So some of the guidelines that that are within our framework is conducting algorithms audit. It's one of the challenges that we see that is very important. And when we talk about auditing algorithms, someone should be able to state the parameters they have audited within an algorithm. They can also be able to go ahead and audit optimization procedures, learning resources, like different tools are coming up. And if a tool is coming up and an organization intends to adapt it, perhaps they might tell their AI engineers also to go and read a few things. They should be some of the learning resources that have been agreed by an institution to be able to do, and it has been audited that it's the best content that you do. Require people to adapt algorithms, mathematical models, and we think that when these all are being audited, they could help to simplify or contribute to simplify and minimizing that bias. Drafting laws and policies, majorly they should embrace normative values, apply transparency, and prevent cruelty of animals. And we feel that these, when they will help to minimize harm, but also improve AI, but also trust in AI systems. We shall realize that some of the people do not adapt to using AI because they just don't trust the system. Agile teams should design a code of conduct, software quality assurance, the quality of software, and some of this is witnessed through the different code reviews that are done in different organizations. Such details about software quality can also be embraced, tightening collaborations between conservationists, policymakers, and software companies to ensure that the tools that are deployed or out there are able to meet some of these standards that are there, because you need people from a diverse culture to be able to, from diverse skills to be able to come together and have all this implemented. And we see that some of the collaborations is being done by Intel to monitor Sabian species in the northern of China, and that is done with the Worldwide Fund for Nature. So AI developers must also explain machine learning algorithms, something that someone gave us a talk yesterday detailedly, but it's important for users to know that they're interacting with an AI system and who is keeping, or which is kind of tracking some user information also. Conclusions and recommendations of the deployed AI systems should be understood, and justification of whatever outcome of the model should also be stated. The development team can also develop reliable, safe, reliable, and robust systems with a target of preventing failure, identify and monitor failure, and maintain the model. Like I said earlier, it may be hard to say that you will not have systems fail. Recently, we had Facebook blacked out for a couple of a few hours, and everyone was wondering what has happened. Yes, systems fail, but can we be able to recover out of that? So the framework should be able to have an incident response plan, which can really help. And these are some of the things that we are proposing, but they are out there. Like the approach has been very successful in cyber security and can really work within our case if embraced by teams that are working with Wildlife Authority working on AI tools. So this is our framework. So the way Agile methodology works, so we look at these as these tasks that are in the backlog. So usually we have user tasks within the backlog, and perhaps every day the team has to meet and know which kind of activity did you work on and any challenges did you face, and then they can see a way forward. So that's how it does work. And such can also be selected by different stakeholders, which are AI developers who equally interact with the system by working on these tasks. And this this Agile methodology is widely used, but also it is iterative in nature. And when all this has been put together, the guidelines that we've explained, details in the previous slides, and used with Agile methodology, we intend to get an ethically aligned AI system as an output. So some of the on-demand applications that we think may help to to minimize the AI ethical concerns that are highly, that we earlier discussed. It's also, I'm also saying that I've not discussed all of the ethical concerns because that we had because of time, but some of the applications that someone could be interested in is how about when we detect poachers and their biometrics, because poachers are a very big problem in wildlife reserves. So how can we catch them? There are systems like TrailGuard, which has been implemented in Tanzania, in Serengeti National Park, and systems like camera traps. So these systems actually are able to give the, for TrailGuard, gives the location of a poacher, and for camera traps, they basically be able to take pictures of animals whenever it does sense them. So when we have these images of these humans, how about when you do object detection? Can we be able to extract and go ahead and maybe detect biometrics? And we've seen biometrics and AI has been successful. So there is a possibility that such a system can really be able to work out. And of course, you can get these biometrics from the surfaces they touch, because when they come, they touch on different surfaces. Another way is to design an AI algorithm to detect the transportation of illegal traded goods. So these goods and their final products. So we're saying poachers are getting these products, but whom are they selling it to? You realize that they're selling it even to cross-border. So how about when we have an AI system that is installed on cross-border points to detect not only illegal traded goods, but also their byproducts, and later on alert whenever it sees that. The system should be able to alert different authorities, like the Wildlife Conservation Authorities, the airport or border control, about it detecting a product. The reason why you would send alert to one or more people is to minimize some of the corruption or bad practices that happen at border points when it comes to illegal trade of some of these goods. How about having an AI-based system that detects illegally traded goods from wildlife on social media? So we have seen researchers pressing Facebook to loosen on their rules so that they can be able to get some of the information from these Facebook groups that are exchanging information while selling some of these products. And an ongoing work that we're able to highlight is work that is currently ongoing on illegal trade in China. It's a paper that someone can be able to look at and see how they went about it and how to embrace the idea and adapt it. So the conclusion, we note that our study is limited, as it is not focused on both, it's only focused on both guidelines and practicals for South Africa. Someone could have a different approach or expand that to other areas. The practical implementation of this proposed framework is very important through active prototyping. Our proposed framework has the potential to mature into an established mitigation strategy because it's using Agile methodology, which is highly tested and is being used. So we feel for the sake of future work, someone can extend this review to other continents. Majorly it can also focus on Africa as a general, but also Latin America and areas like Asia. But we also note that the framework can also be implemented in several AI systems in sectors ranging from agriculture, health, education, and manufacturing, and other areas. Okay. So for any references, all the details are within that paper, and some of the AI ethical concerns we left out that within that paper. Thank you for listening to me.